adfreeshows.com. Top guys and My Push members, welcome to That Was Extra. Joel Gertner named this show. I am so pleased to be hosting our post show with the ECW guys. We have Blue Meanie, Josh Shernoff, and of course, my love, Joel Gertner. Good to see all of you tonight.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Good to see you.
Oh, so good to see you. Happy Easter. Spring has sprung, and we're talking tonight about Terry Funk.
Yeah.
The Funker. I laughed when I heard that on the podcast. Who said the Funker?
I think I may have said that was everybody called him the Funker.
That was a pretty good one.
Yeah.
By the way, Josh Shernoff, while you're here, the finest eyebrows on adfreeshows.com, and also ripped Dave Meltzer a new one. Congratulations and thank you. Good to see you.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure. Yeah, that got a lot of thanks to, I think, Eric Bischoff's tweet of that got a lot of play.
It did.
And then Bruce Pritchard bringing it up on his show as well. And I appreciated Conrad throwing my name out there, since Bruce had no idea who it was who did it, or, but yeah, no, that got a great response, and which was a good feeling, because had the response been overwhelmingly we disagree with you, I probably wouldn't have felt as good about it. But
that's how that works.
But I stand by what I said, and
Well, I'm glad that you're still not too big a celebrity to hang out with us on this Sunday evening.
Never.
Shernoff.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, I got a question for you.
Sure. You're not allowed to ask questions. That's not how this works, Joel. Save it.
To keep those eyebrows all trimmed up and shaped up, and what kind of product do you use? Is it the same kind of thing that Meanie uses on his kind of middle regions that we're not allowed to mention on ad-free shows? Or
no, well, we're not going to do any plugs or anything, but it's funny you mentioned it, because I've actually gone to manscaped.com. I use the promo code Extreme.
What are you talking about? This is ad-free shows. What are you even talking about? Manscaped.com.
Joel, I'm not talking about. You asked me a question.
Our little text log where we just, hey, Meanie, you used your Manscaped today? Yeah,
I think we're all just trying. We're all friends
working
here.
Just as well as it did last week, dude. It's working even better than last week. I can't even explain it. This isn't our little text log. This is now you're on ad-free shows.
This is not the thing where Meanie was like 2 more trims and I might be able to see it. Like that wasn't, it didn't know, but that's what I do. I manscape. I have a separate Manscaped though for.
I'm holding down until they get the selfie stick and just, I can. Well, we never plug anything as I open up my ugly seltzer here.
Yeah.
There. Just, I would never plug anything.
No, I wouldn't either.
Monsters, absolute monsters.
That's why I'm not wearing my Talking with Friends hoodie or anything. What?
The longest ad in the history of ad-free shows came from the only ad really in the history of ad-free shows came from you guys. So
yeah, I'm still not sure what people are talking about.
Yeah, no. I mean, depends how you measure, right? I don't think it was an ad.
And if you measure,
I think it was just.
And if you measure from my asshole, you get 12 inches.
Hey, I used the line of my mother-in-law today after eating her brunch. I said, your brunch was like getting a handshake in a whorehouse. She didn't know what I was talking about. It worked.
But then again, who hasn't run a line on your mother-in-law?
I literally thought that was.
Wow.
Love it, pal.
All right, then. So this is.
You guys are outrageous. Michael McClanahan to the rescue. Give us a good question about this episode of That Was Extreme.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lauren, and happy Easter, everyone.
Happy Easter.
Happy Park Day.
Thank you for joining us. I've dubbed this 2 Jews and a Meanie's Extreme Easter. So I'm really happy all of you guys could be here with us.
So my question, and I'll start by saying what I usually do at the start of these, but I thought it was another fantastic episode.
Well, thank you.
Especially for someone who didn't get to watch the original ECW as it was occurring. I really enjoy when you do these deep dive profile pieces that give us a glimpse into these extreme athletes. I guess my question is, who do you think today is a modern day Terry Funk, in the sense that they can have a classic wrestling match if they need to, or they can kind of flip the switch and go into that extreme mode? Who do you think in today's current professional wrestling landscape kind of exemplifies those characteristics? And that question goes out to all 3 of you.
I feel like I always go first, so I'll let you guys go first.
Joel, take it away.
I don't know if there is one. I mean, if you're looking at, going back and forth between hardcore and that NWA traveling world champion top territory guy style. So if you're looking for a guy that can do like a 60-minute Broadway with Harley Race, or if you're looking for a guy that could get in there for 30 or 45 minutes and go bonkers with Sabu, I think because the landscape is different right now, and I think arguably maybe neither one of those types of guys are used or needed at the moment. My natural inclination is to say that Terry Funk was one of a kind, and I don't know that there is a proper answer to your question.
Yeah, I think there's definitely not. I agree. He's a one of a kind. So there's definitely not a modern day Terry Funk. But as far as I think there are a lot of people who can both do that catch as catch can wrestling, that mat style, and then turn it up to be more hardcore. I think a guy like Cody Rhodes is somebody who has had some of those types of matches. Obviously I think someone like the late Brody Lee was really somebody who we never really got to see on a large scale, some of the hardcore stuff that he could do. And in turn, I'm not sure we ever really got to see how much he could do just, in the ring strictly like that. But if you watch some of his matches when he was like Luke Harper and stuff, there was a lot of that, that he could go in there and just wrestle a solid wrestling match, but he also had the ability to go, more extreme, for lack of a better term.
As far as the spirit of Terry Funk, I don't know about in ring. Well, some in ring because he was mentored by Terry Funk. Terry Funk is, Tommy Dreamer's sort of like a modern Terry Funk in that.
Is he modern?
Well, he could just, in this day and age, how many people could be on Impact one week and then WWF TV in the same week? Tommy Dreamer's been on Impact and, WWE in the same week just because he's so beloved like a Terry Funk was, where Terry Funk could pretty much make his own rules, set his own dates, and show up wherever he wants because he's Terry Funk. Tommy Dreamer is one of the few guys nowadays that get to show up wherever and nobody has a beef with it. I know everybody's blowing up that, Jericho is going to be on Stone Cold, but Tommy Dreamer was one of those few people who could probably be on AEW and WWE the same week and nobody would bat an eyelash because everybody loves Tommy Dreamer. And I think
it's got to be that, right? Or else he's got pictures of something because I can't even get booked. You know what I
mean? No, you know what, Meanie? I questioned you about whether or not he's modern, but he is. He would be a modern day Terry Funk in the sense that he just turned 50.
Yeah.
So that whole middle-aged and crazy thing that, Tommy Dreamer really has kind of shifted into more of the Terry Funk role, and not just on camera, but from a mentor level behind the scenes as well. I know he is mentoring young talent all the time. So
he's carrying that torch of Terry Funk even to this day,
Yep. That branding iron.
that fiery T-shirt taped to a chair or whatever it was.
With Scotch tape would never melt.
Yeah. In that moment that we don't mention.
Yeah. That reason why my first debut never aired. But yeah.
But we mentioned it on the podcast. We talk about all sorts of stuff on the podcast. I mean, I know the people here are people who are already into it, but so we don't need to belabor the point. But we have an awesome time talking about all the stuff. A lot of it that we're kind of unearthing stuff that we remember firsthand from back in the day.
And what I like about doing this Terry Funk episode is I think I have a unique perspective in the fact that like I was on TCW shows as a fan and as an employee. And I pretty much watched TCW from its first television show all the way through to the last. So I have an interesting perspective when it comes to the fans' mindset and the wrestlers' mindset. And, watching Terry Funk throughout the history of ECW and being fortunate enough to have an in-ring moment with him was pretty special.
Speaking of which, with your unique perspectives and all the lovely things you gentlemen, I'm using that term pretty loosely after this episode, that you guys
Yeah.
you guys discuss on That Was Extreme. We did notice this time a little bit of a shift. Even you guys commented on it during the episode that you're kind of clicking a little bit differently now. We're taking off the mask and seeing a little bit more real life out of you guys. What do you think? Explain that, describe that for us. What was your first episode like? Maybe a little nervous, maybe kind of holding back a little bit, because we saw kind of the same thing with 83 Weeks. Eric Bischoff definitely didn't want to share a whole lot, but about, I don't know, 12 weeks in, we started to see a little bit more out of him. So tell me about that development and what can we expect? Please don't get any crazier on us.
Oh man, can't promise that.
Yeah, right.
But
Well,
Meanie
I think it comes down to, you know, I've worked with Josh for so long, and I've worked with Joel for so long, you know, plenty of time working at each individually. But then when you make a trio out of this, it's a matter of, you know, finding a rapport, and then, you know, being on a new platform, you know, ad-free shows and Conrad and all that stuff. Not that like it's PBS or anything, but at first, you know, we're kind of like that movie Step Brothers, where they show up to the job interview to be a janitor in tuxedos, and we're all, you know, we're all classy the first couple episodes, and then let a fart go, and then, you know, just, you know, then it's just, and then it's on from there, and it's on like Donkey Kong. But yeah, we found a report. Like, this is the third episode. I think the three of us who are already comfortable with each other.
This is our fourth episode.
Is it? Oh
Yeah.
my God. Time flies.
Shernoff, don't correct a talent, please.
Oh,
He's on a roll. Let him go with it. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Yeah, we just have fun, man. This episode was much in the spirit of Terry Funk. We just had a lot of fun and got a little crazy, and felt like that time of the party where the alcohol and the drugs kick in and everything's just funny. So
yeah, I think, like, to what Meanie's saying, you know, so we just had our 1-year anniversary of Mind of the Meanie. So Meanie and I have been working together every single week, sometimes multiple times a week when we're doing other shows together. So that rapport is there. And Mind of the Meanie has always been very, I mean, although that had the same thing, the first few weeks, first few episodes, you listen to it, we're kind of feeling each other out a bit. But Joel and I had worked together a couple of times, which were great. I always enjoyed it. But again, now here we are, you know, we're on Conrad's network. We want to put our best foot forward. We are, you know, we want to entertain, but we also don't want to just kind of, you know, if my role on it is to steer the ship, you know, I want to make sure that we're still kind of getting where we're supposed to getting these facts, because people are tuning in to hear about Terry Funk. They want to hear about him in an entertaining way, but we have to make sure they're hearing about Terry Funk. So I think the first few episodes, for me at least, was very much, okay, I want to make sure that we're hitting all of our beats of everything that we need to do to make the show what we had originally agreed it was going to be. But I know Conrad also wanted, and as you can see with his shows, and like you mentioned with 83 Weeks, he wants that personality. He wants us to just have a good time, because then everybody listening or watching is going to have a good time. And so I think, for me, one of the things that really, I think we didn't even realize, but said it, was the Zoom calls, because last month's Zoom call kind of went off the rails a little bit. And once we started being able to interact in that way with our audience, I think that kind of gave us a little bit, even subconsciously, a little bit of comfort, going, well, they all enjoyed this on the Zoom call, so they're probably going to enjoy us just being ourselves you know, in the actual show. So that I think in just, you know, 4 months in, or 4 episodes in here, you just start getting that rapport and getting a little bit closer, and being able to bust some chops, as they say. Speaking of chops, look at Joel.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Josh,
Gertner here.
Yeah, Josh, I couldn't agree, because these Zoom calls to me are a bit of a burden. And then you got the one Topanga guy who's like way off the rails, completely off the reservation. But here's one thing I will say though. If I was brought in to be me, then I was brought in not to tame it up, not to dumb it down, not to make it milquetoast, not to make it the garden variety, various and sundry, blah, 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 or gaga, but to make it ha-ha, but not over the top, into the right kind of ha-ha, organically and naturally the way I am. So you can't tell me to put it on the shelf, to mail it in, to only give half. You can't tell me not to go full blast, especially because look who I'm working with. Meanie was at my wedding.
Yes.
And more importantly, was in Woodbridge, Virginia with me.
Yes.
So he's for life. Shernoff, you as a 14-year-old tadpole backyardigan brought me in for an indie shot during the end of or right after my ECW run, completely overpaid me. And I've always appreciated you for that. So when it comes to the two of you, I'm always going to put my best foot forward. I'm always going to put my foot in my mouth. And I'm never going to give you 11 inches. It's always going to be the full 13 inches.
Thank you.
Did he really just say that?
Of effort, 13 inches of effort. He
course.
quantifies everything.
13 inches of vanilla Virgil.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Okay. So speaking of Topanga guy, several minutes ago, he said Gertner probably wants to shit on me. So let's bring him in. It's James Coelho.
You mean verbally or literally?
James, I was about to say he should be so lucky. I mean, this isn't Fiverr or Craigslist or anything. I mean, you have to officially, this isn't Thumbtack, you know what I mean? But okay, here comes James Coelho.
I don't think you can
It's a place
order
where
someone
you can-
shitting on you
No,
on Thumbtack.
Not on Thumbtack, no. More like a handyman, kind of like I have a desk that needs to be put together. What's up, James Coelho? Look at your background. What's your background? A tabloid? That's a shock.
Well, someday, when you
Putting
get a
false
computer
information.
and you join a Zoom call from a computer and actually get a microphone and do a podcast like a real professional, maybe we will take you seriously. But
Do you know
then,
what? Let me ask you a question. Here's some wrestling trivia.
go ahead.
CXNF36B. Do you know what that is?
It's Roman numerals. No. there's
No.
nothing in there.
It's my Prodigy Interactive Service ID from May of 1989. You know why? Because when it comes to doing wrestling stuff on a computer, I've been doing it since you've been sitting in the corner sucking thumbs.
Ooh, he's funny. He's feisty, guys. I'm just living rent-free in that head. I love it. Love it.
Hey, you know what? I
On the
think.
podcast, love it.
Oh, well.
I thought he was giving a license plate from Woodbridge, Virginia.
I honestly don't have a question. I just thought that Gertner wanted to go off some more, but it's all good. Yeah, if you're going to quote me, at least get it right. I never said that I would. Let's be clear. It wasn't that I think that I would get it over you, because number one, if we were going by famous, they were obviously going to pick you. They would pick you over me, because who the fuck knows who the hell I am. So I'm not that naive, but at the same time, that's why I had originally asked out in terms of doing some kind of contest or something to try to level the playing field. But
the contest is when it comes to the line and our position in line, you and I, to interview Topanga. The contest is, as far as you're concerned, how far behind Joel Gertner can I stand? Because next time you try to stand on Twitter in front of me on that line, you won't have to worry about not being as famous as I am, because I will make you famous late local news style.
Joel, he's going to be standing 13 inches behind you.
Listen, the reality is we all know that that Paul is going to get that interview when the time comes. So, little Paulie B action there. It's not going to be anybody else, and he's going to knock it out of the park. So
It's true.
Also agreed.
It's true. He said, I'll still get it. Thank you for joining us tonight, James Coelho. When I heard on the podcast something about the Topanga guy on the Zoom calls, I was like, who's the Topanga guy on the Zoom calls? Now I know. Hey, where else do you get to hang out and be shit on by Joel Gertner? Ad-free shows.
actually, you can go
Cameo.
Yeah.
Cameo's a good place, but because this is ad-free shows, that's me answering a question. So it's like historical reference.
Right.
So
right.
hypothetically, the answer to that question would be Cameo, but I'm not to go further and be like, and they're $50 each, and they're recommended and suggested, on Jim Cornette show and whatever else. Forget all that. Just Cameo. Look for Matt Stryker loves to send people to Cameo for Impact Wrestling stars. As you're there and seeing all of them, you'll probably see me in the can of beans discount kind of. You'll see me on with the indies. I don't know who I'm mixed in with. I'm probably mixed in with Ken Shamrock, Randy Couture, other people that want to fight James Quello. I don't know who I'm there with, but just find me on Cameo. Or if we're not allowed to plug Cameo because it is ad-free shows, then celebvm.com. I'm there too.
Okay.
Anthony Pyrus, what's up?
I was going to begin by putting Lauren over by agreeing with you that the show is just getting better and better. However, I got to take you to task. How the hell do you expect me to follow Mike McClanahan and that? My God. First and foremost, Josh Shernoff, you are a rock star.
Oh, thank you.
For the promo you cut on Little Davey.
Thank you.
My question, I want to go back to Terry Funk for a second. And this would be more for Joel and Meanie because they were backstage when all this stuff happened. One of my favorite mysteries is Terry Funk's NWA World Heavyweight title reign, because I was a mere lad of 5 years old when that was going on. I wasn't even watching pro wrestling yet at that point. And we know how difficult it was for him, especially towards the end. He got out of it. Joel and Meanie, you guys, I know, love to sit at the learning tree and hear the stories. Did Terry ever tell you any stories about what that period of his life was like? I'm really curious as to what he went through during that time. So I'd appreciate it if you could let me know. And of course, go Pats!
Meanie, you were right out of high school around that time period. So were you actually, you may have been backstage with him during his NWA title run.
Oh, you son of a bitch. Welcome to the last episode. I never really talked to Terry about old school NWA. I'm sorry to disappoint. We pretty much talked about every kind of life thing you can imagine, real life things.
Don't worry about disappointing. I've been disappointing my wife for 26 years, so yeah.
That's just I pretty much, when it comes to Terry, just I try to give him a space, because watching Terry get around a little bit, later on, you could tell he was just thinking about, oh shit, what do I have to do tonight? Oh God, I have Blue Meanie.
In that vein, were there any stories that he may have told you at any point that would be little into the weeds?
Nothing's coming to mind. Sorry to this, but like I said, sorry to disappoint. But just everything, it was Blue Meanie, how you doing? You need to go down to the junkyard and buy a blue car. Just all this kind of goofy. I guess the deepest conversation we had was I told on. That was Extreme, where he he talked about how the most important people in the business were the jobbers, and he dedicated his book to the jobbers. He made me read that passage to his book out loud, and it was a pretty special moment, because you really and I try to tell anybody getting into this business, everybody in this business is important, from the ticket takers from the people who run the show to the people who's tearing tickets to the folks selling the popcorn. Everybody's important, and people like to throw out that term jobber like it's an insult. He's just a jobber. Well, the jobber's probably the most important person, because
without the jobbers, they make the stars look great.
That was the whole the whole thing behind the Job Squad. Al Snow was like, hey, Undertaker gave me that tombstone, but I get to stand up and go, oh, didn't feel a thing, and just bury him, So the jobbers had all the power, that was the impetus behind the Job Squad. But that, as far as special moments and stuff like that, I was having that conversation with Terry. Everything else has just been hey, how you feeling, how you doing, and seeing when his wife was coming to shows and hanging out with the family and stuff like that. You know, I kind of, maybe I should kick myself a little bit for not, bother. I always feel like I'm a bother. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, let the man be, he's a legend. I'm sure he's answered this question a million times, I don't want to be a pain in the ass. I'd rather be the
Shernoff. Are you taking notes?
Yeah, no, he's been an enormous bother to me. I mean, I now have an action figure coming out. I'm in a video game. I can't tell you how much he has bothered me because I like to just do nothing. But I started doing a show with Meanie, and all of a sudden now I have all these wonderful things happening. So that's just been one of the biggest bothers of my entire life. Over here selflessly putting me over.
Yeah, I'll let Joel take over. But yeah, that's I feel like I've rambled on that one.
I wish I would have had more time to talk with Terry Funk, but I didn't. I didn't talk with him about his time on top in the NWA. Really much of, as a tape trader, I would have loved to have talked with him about Memphis. I would have loved to have talked with him about working with Flair in '89. It just wasn't. I think, like Meanie said, I was kind of, in some respects, I was introverted. Especially with, guys in the back, legends that I marked out for. With some guys, I definitely, probably with everybody, it was kind of beat into me as one of the younger guys on the roster, just to kind of speak when spoken to. But with a guy like Terry Funk, I definitely always felt like I kind of belonged at the kids' table. And so a lot of the right stuff, unfortunately, didn't come. I just actually sent a DM to Sid Vicious for the first time since last year. And he had said that he would consider doing my podcast, The 69-Minute Eargasm. And I looked over our text log and everything, and he's kind of into it, not to put that on blast. And I'm not putting it out there to name drop or to try to influence it or anything like that, but it's fresh in my mind from like an hour ago. And it reminds me, because it's exactly what I'm saying now about Terry Funk, is what I said to Sid in the DM, is that in our time together in ECW, when I met him, there was so much that I would have loved to have talked with him about, and I didn't get the chance. And that's kind of just how it was. You were at work and it was time to get work done.
Well, I certainly look forward to having Sid Vicious on your show. Guys, so 1977 Terry Funk is going to remain a big mystery to me, but I can't thank you guys enough for being here. I love your show. My only complaint about that was Extreme is it's only once a month. I could do this every week with you guys. Thank you.
I appreciate that. If Conrad wants to lend his research team to us, I think we could do it a little more frequently than once a month. But
we always want it with you wanting more and not going, oh man, these guys are overkill,
But it's interesting. One of the things Joel was saying is how I felt, like, all kidding aside and everything, how I felt for the last year with Meanie doing the podcast, forgetting the friendship and stuff that came from it. But initially, as from the fan side of it, I just got to sit there and ask Meanie any question that came to mind. He would say something, and if it made me think of something, I'd ask him a question. And I've learned so much about him and so much about the business in general that he was around that time period just from being in that position. And it's a shame. You look back at so many people that would have been amazing in podcast form. And I think Conrad had answered recently a tweet or something where he said like Bobby Heenan would have been an incredible person to do a podcast with. And I can't even begin to imagine, forgetting just how funny it would be, but the wealth of knowledge. So maybe that's something where with like a Terry Funk, I know the conversations with Conrad have been incredible. And now looking at it with, him doing that with Jim Crockett and then him passing and really seeing this as his like a autobiography, of him being able to tell his side and everything. It's one of those things. And I don't know if he's thought about it, tried to make it happen or whatever, but Terry Funk would be somebody I think on my list. If Conrad said, hey, who do you think I should get for the next conversations with Conrad? A guy like Terry Funk would be amazing to have, just that, because ad-free shows is really kind of becoming the way the WWE network was always, WWE is the gatekeeper of all this wrestling history. As far as the actual videos themselves, I feel like ad-free shows has really become the gatekeeper of wrestling history as far as the stories, which are just as, if not more important. So just food for thought.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I'm going to make sure that we pass it along to Conrad.
Please do.
A conversation with Terry Funk. That might be fun. We have a relatively new top guy joining us tonight. I think for the first time, KJ. Hello.
Hey guys.
What up?
Hey KJ.
What's up, KJ?
Hey, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say hi. Being from Iceland, we didn't get ECW, so I really haven't seen as much as I should have. But I'm working on my meanie beard game here. Just need to color it up a little bit.
This is my ode to Jim Neidhart anyway, so it's like
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to say I've seen a lot of the BWO and yeah, I always liked Meanie. I thought you were funny.
Thank you so much.
So
man. It means a lot.
Just one. It might be a silly question that everyone knows, but the BWO, how like I always wanted to see more of it, like in WWE or whatever. Just was there? Yeah. What was like? I know it was probably a shot at like the NWO or stuff, but what was like the background story of it, or you know?
Just at the time, we were doing parodies in ECW, and that was all Raven's idea for me and Stevie to start doing parodies. Our first one was the Fabulous Ones, and and then from there it just grew. And then Nova joined us, and we started doing other acts and stuff like that. We were doing, before Nova came along, we did the American Meanie Males. We were the Blue Meanie Bloods. I was Sir Meanie, the Earl of Eating, and he was, Lord Stevie or Sir Steve, whatever, whichever one. But I mean, it just got to the point where we did Kiss when Kiss came around in '96. Which if you watch if you watch us do Kiss at the ECW arena, you see a young Tony Khan in the crowd holding up a sign saying "We want Jer," which was our mutual friend Jeremiah, who wasn't at that show. But yeah, we're just doing parodies, and it only seemed like a natural. We were like the Weird Al Yankovic of pro wrestling at the time. We're just being, socially, we're speaking socially about the wrestling business and doing whatever was hot. And then it just seemed natural that, the BWO, the NWO was be the obvious parody. Blue rhymes with new. And I want to say, I thought I came up with it. And then Bubba says he came up with it. I think in the middle, we both came up with it together. He was like, "You guys should be the new something order." I was like, "How about the Blue World Order?" And then he was like, "How about the new Blue World Order?" I'm like, "Let's flip a coin." But I pitched it to Al Snow one time over the phone, and he popped. And I was like, "If I can make Al pop, then I know it's good." So I pitched it to Stevie. Stevie pitched it to Raven, and then Raven, pitched it to Paul. And it was supposed to be a one-night deal. And then we did the initial debut, just with the airbrush shirts and stuff like that. And Paul and Todd heard the reaction, and then they were like, "Oh, we could make T-shirts. So maybe we'll do this a couple more times." And from there on, it became like a good 6-month run, which led to Stevie being the co-main event of the first ever pay-per-view. But as far as like the New World Order, those guys were really cool with it. When I went to WWE, I asked X-Pac, I was like, "Hey man, I hope these guys didn't mind the whole Blue World Order." It's like, no, we loved it, And then I went to, meet, along the lines, I met, Kevin, I met Scott, and Scott was like, "Well, actually I used you as a vehicle to rib Kevin Nash and the other guys." Cause I was like, he was like, "Well, if it's the Blue World Order and he's me, and he's the leader of the Blue World Order, I should be the leader of the New World Order," kind of stuff, just to rib him and stuff like that. It was never meant to be like a fuck you or anything like that. We're paying respect, and we were doing it well. But like, when they, the one time the NWO said something about ECW on TV and being in the bingo hall, the next week we came out with bingo cards, and the BWO's throwing out bingo cards and stuff like that. It's a little tit for tat, nice little jab and stuff like that. But the fact that, in 2000, and 21, and I'm still talking about it, and it means a lot because there's so many wrestlers out there who I think are way more talented than I ever was in the ring, and I'm still here talking and saying people, give a shit, means a lot,
You
and
made an impact.
I try.
Yeah.
Usually when I walk because I'm 300 pounds, but yeah, no, I did. It's all about having fun. It is me mixing up my two favorite loves, which was pro wrestling and comedy. I was a big fan of comedy growing up and music and all that stuff. So if I was never going to be Mr. Universe, I was never going to be Dean Malenko or whatever, but I made my niche and always find your, see what everybody else is doing and kind of do something else so you don't blend in with the crowd.
Different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for answering the question, and I'll be more prepared next time since I'm pretty sure I'm safe from Gertner's 13 inches. So depending on where he's in the country.
Yeah.
It has a far reach.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. Honored to talk to you.
Watch list.
Hey, I want to point out that Joshua Odom, first of all, great name. But I want to point out that not only does he have our show running as his background and our logo, but he also has the new Mind of the Meanie 2-pack on there of myself and the Blue Meanie from Cella Toys, and what looks to be, I'm assuming, a custom Joel Gertner action figure in the background as well.
Joshua Odom, speak up and show us you kiss ass. Let's see it.
I found it online. I knew that Gertner was feeling a little left out because he was not included, in the 2-pack. It hasn't become a 3-pack. So I'm guessing that somebody made the custom there. And then there's just that conversation piece at the bottom in case anybody need to reference it.
Yeah, I think on my feed, at least, your name is blocking it, but I'm pretty sure it says manscaped.com promo code extreme.
It could have been a 3-pack. I wouldn't have mind if they would have kept me, in my, just like, as part of the deal, like, since I'm just saying, like,
we weren't even doing a show yet, Joel.
There's a little bit of leeway when it's a 3-way, especially if Shernoff's in the middle, and if it would have been a 3-pack, that would have been okay.
Well, I've noticed that you shaved, Joel. Was that because that's what you want to be represented in the figure? Was that like, this is your pitch?
I am not legally allowed to tell you which period piece that I was shooting for last week and upcoming this week. I am not allowed to tell you which one of them I am shooting for. But when the NDA expires and the time is right, you can be sure that I won't be able to tell anybody here unless it might get misconstrued as an ad. But if it's informational or advertorial, then I'll try to run it up the flagpole and see if it's the kind of thing that I can let people know about.
Joel, we don't, you keep saying this, but we don't do ads. I don't stand here. I'm not standing here just because I'm more comfortable holding on to the prototypes of our action figures available at cellatoys.net outside the US or mindofthemeanie.com inside. Doesn't mean that it's an ad. That's just me going, hey, what's on my desk? Oh, it's like a stress toy, except I can't squeeze them or they'll break because I think they're like resin or something. But hey, they're waiting for you, Joel. They're waiting for you. These figures need a friend.
Figures.
Amazing.
All right. Josh Odom, thank you for that lovely piece of entertainment. Josh Odom is a thorn in my side most of the time. So
you're welcome.
Yes. Thank you so much, darling. Tim McGoldrick, please redeem us.
Thanks, Lauren. I'll try.
Thanks.
Great episode, guys. Thanks a lot. I had a question because it was actually good timing that you did this episode this month, because I just finished Terry's book, even though it was written 15 years ago, about a month ago. And one thing that really stood out to me, listening to you guys talk during the podcast and reading his book, was a lot of wrestlers, once they start getting older, they kind of start shitting on the younger guys, saying they don't know how to work, or, they don't do it the way that it used to be. And Terry is the exact opposite way. He's putting over everyone in ECW in his book. I mean, when he's talking about Sabu and how, Sabu was a master at selling, when he'd do a big move, he would show that it hurt him as much as his opponent. It made me think that Terry is really unique in that way. Why do you think that so many guys, do you think they're just trying to work the audience to get attention? Why don't you think more guys are like Terry, who are willing to adapt and change when the business changes? Because I mean, he started in the 60s, like you said, worked through the NWA and would do those 60-minute matches and then became a hardcore legend. Like why do you think more people aren't like him?
I don't know, man. It just seems like if you can't keep up with them, shit on them. You know, it just I always use this analogy. There's a point in time where Lou Thez thought Harley Race was a spot monkey. You know, he would always complain about Harley goes too fast and all that stuff. That just seems to be a thing with most forms of whatever, whatever profession you're in. The generation before thinks the next generation's the shits, and then so on and so forth. And
it's the same with music.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like Terry is like the Lemmy Kilmister of wrestling. Lemmy was nice to everybody who was younger than him, but everybody else crapped on everything else.
Yeah, I don't get I kind of understand it. Like it's like if you're trying to hang on to wrestling and try to stay relevant and keep your name out there, say something, if negative, gets, the most, what's that Don Henley song, Dirty Laundry? They always love the dirty secrets and stuff like that. So like, I think a lot of times if guys it might be a point of them feeling like their careers are slipping away and that somebody's taking their spot, or the fact that, maybe nobody approached them in the locker room and asked them for advice or stuff like that. But I know I'm getting to the point in my career, where I'm trying to do that Terry Funk thing where I'm trying to help younger guys and give them advice and stuff like that, just because somebody did it for me. But, I can try to take a guess at why people get so crotchety and mean when they get out and start shitting on the next generation. But I don't agree with it. I don't get it. It baffles me why you would want to shit on somebody. I mean, like, history repeats itself, just, with people, getting old and crotchety and, shitting on the next generation. I just don't get it. But, I wish more guys were like a Terry Funk, because Terry Funk could look around the locker room and go, hey, like I said, when I first started showing up, he said something about me to Dreamer. Dreamer pulled me over and we had a conversation and stuff like that. And, just it's a shame, the older generation starts shitting on the younger generation. I don't understand. I don't get it. I mean, it's one thing to critique and say this is what they could do better, but to just say it's all the shits, that I don't agree with that. You can say this is how I would have done it better, or this is how I wish they would have done it. But just to go, oh, this is all the shits, it's garbage.
Constructive criticism is helpful. Otherwise, it's just noise and it's negativity, and it's not necessary.
I'd rather be the people flock to instead of flock from. Some people bring joy wherever they go, and some people bring joy whenever they go.
All right.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, is he? Hold on! Don't go anywhere! Don't go anywhere! Is he still on?
I'm still here.
I like your headphones.
Thank you. That's it.
Hey, no, and more. Behind you.
Yes.
Are those printouts of screenshots of NFTs?
No, those are actually signed pictures of baseball players.
That's nice. Do you have a computer?
I do. Yes.
When I interview Topanga, will you bring it?
I absolutely will. I won't be much of a help to you interviewing Topanga. I'm not as big of a fan as you guys are.
I wouldn't want you. You can hang out in the back.
I'll be happy to help you, Joel. Though.
See,
absolutely.
Also, if you're close by, if you want to lend your headphones and computer to Joel.
Yeah, I don't have a microphone, but we could work on that. We could probably get one. I'd be happy to produce the whole thing for you, Joel.
Wonderful.
Glad to help.
Thank you.
Great people we have here, always willing to lend a helping hand. Thank you so much, Tim. Good to see you tonight. And Joey Carr, good to see you as well.
Hi, Lauren. So Joel, did you find out why WWE does not recognize Terry Funk's first ECW title reign.
I did. I think it's because of chronology. I think it's not just them singling out his reign. I think everything that was under the banner of Eastern Championship Wrestling and the NWA is not recognized on that list. So it picks up with Shane Douglas as the first ever Extreme Championship Wrestling champion.
Okay, and I can't follow any of these questions. I have no more, so that's it. So thank you for taking my time, and I'm still a subscriber to all of your podcasts. So
thank you.
Oh, you're awesome.
Thank you, brother.
You.
Appreciate you.
And I love that. I still love the podcast. Keep it going. I wish it could go on more than once a month too. So
thank you.
Thank you, my dude.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
We appreciate it, Joey. I was wondering about that too when I was listening to the podcast today. I was like, I should write that down and make sure it gets asked, but I was driving, so I didn't. Antonio Santos, what you got for us?
Hey, what up, you guys?
Hey.
What's up, man?
What's up, dude?
Hey, Joel, just a quick question before I go. Don't worry about that dude, James Quell. He thinks he's a Snicker bar is more bigger than him.
And more satisfying, obviously. I mean, it's just marketing. And that's not an ad, by the way. That's just,
that one's definitely not an ad.
No, not at all. I mean, it might make you feel like kind of, when this is over, I'm going to go outside, corner store, get a Snickers bar, whatever. But that's not us. That's your own. We can't, you know what I mean? Like when we mention that we own a Manscaped or 3, and then people are like, I wonder if it's manscaped.com. Is it that simple to go to the website? When people do that, we're not like the microchip that's in the vaccine and now it's in your head. That's just, we talk and people, because they should, listen. That's all it is, really.
I just happen to always have this sitting on my desk next to me because you never know when you need a trim. That's it.
Bet you don't need it at your desk, Josh.
Especially you swarthy bitch.
Hey, listen, seriously. Sorry, I was holding on to my crop reviver, but no, they're also a great sponsor over at Mind of the Meanie. So I always have it here. And that's the thing. And I was just, I don't know. It just came out. I thought, hey, why don't I type in Extreme, see what that does? And turned out it saved me 20% and I got free shipping. So what am I going to do? I'm going to be a jerk and I'm not going to tell everybody I have this platform on a podcast and ad-free shows, but I'm going to go, oh no, it's ad-free shows. I can't tell you all about this great promo code that I found at manscaped.com, Extreme, No, it just felt like I was being
nice. 20% is nice. But what if I told you that you really didn't save that much? You know why?
Why?
Because it doesn't cost that much.
I just want to say that to start up. Well, you guys have a good night.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Appreciate it.
In the words of Andrew Dice Clay, gee, your balls smell terrific.
Man.
On that
hanging around with people who use the crop preserver ball deodorant.
There you go. Good stuff. I have that.
Are we not doing ads for that now? I didn't get the memo.
We're not doing ads for anything. That's the memo. No ads. Okay. This is ad-free shows. And I think I told you this person was a pain in my ass. He just hit me up in the chat and said, I know I already got to speak, but I didn't ask my question. So pain in the ass, unmute yourself.
You're welcome.
Will the real pain in the ass please stand?
If you haven't noticed, it's me. It's because she has an unhealthy obsession with Atlanta teams. So just, it's bad judgment on her part.
Okay.
Well, this is not an ad, so you're good so far.
Not an ad.
How do Braves do?
I don't want to talk about the Braves.
My question is, with Terry Funk, hypothetically, if Terry was not, if Terry didn't participate in ECW, because I think that he was a huge part of getting the mainstream attention and really launching that as that brand there. If Terry wasn't there, do you think that ECW would have ever reached that level? Because a lot of the, like you said, you had the veterans that came in that just were kind of running the indie circuit for a payday, but really weren't contributing, versus Terry was really working hard to elevate this and show that this is a true alternative. And I think that the unique thing about ECW was it catered to a wide variety. It had something for everybody, whether it was the hardcore fan, the wrestling purist, and everything in between. I think without Terry really naming his name and credibility, I don't know that it would have really hit the levels that it did. Maybe it would have, but not as quick. I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts on there, and his impact and the hypothetical of, what if there was no Terry Funk?
Oh, Terry definitely legitimized ECW, where other guys looked at as just another indie. I mean, case in point, Sabu. It's like, hey, I just thought it was another indie, and I decided to go to Japan over ECW because they were offering me more money. Where maybe Terry Funk might have honored his booking with the ECW, but yeah, Terry definitely legitimized ECW in the eyes of a lot of other veteran talent. Along came a Tommy Rich and stuff like that, who took ECW very serious and stuff like that. And I don't think, who knows what would have happened if there wasn't a Terry.
Meaning, if I can piggyback off this question,
sure.
Do you think that, because what you're saying about Sabu, if you look at it from Sabu's point of view, I mean, never skip out on a booking. You gave your word. It is what it is. But I understand the concept of his thought process of it's an indie versus I could go to Japan and make some more money and whatnot. But do you think that it was more Terry Funk's belief in what ECW was, or do you think it speaks maybe more so to Terry Funk's work ethic and the fact that Terry Funk said, I'm booked, unlike his friend, but if he were to say, I'm booked, I'm going to give it 110%. I don't care if there's 100,000 people here or if there's 10 people here. I don't care if this is an indie or this is a major promotion. I've been booked. They're paying me money. I'm going to give it my all. And then in turn, ECW, he was lending that to ECW without maybe even saying, in the very beginning, at least, I'm putting ECW on my shoulders, on my back, and I'm going to bring it somewhere. Maybe he was just being Terry Funk. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Terry comes from an era when a handshake means something, give your word in the hand. And the ironic thing about Sabu is, he's the descendant of the original Sheik, who's like an outlaw. So maybe Sabu had a little bit of that Sheik mentality, where, I was just listening to a podcast where somebody said they weren't. Actually, it was Terry and Dory Funk working for the Sheik, and they had to go to house, and Terry turns to the door and goes, "Oh, we should be getting a pretty good payday out of this." And then Sheik's other brother or nephew walks in and goes, "Oh my God, somebody robbed the box office. They got away with all the money." And Terry's like, "Oh, guess we ain't gonna get that money now." Ironically, the Sheik kind of screwed Terry or Sheik's brother, who just passed away, because that's how I heard that story. But yeah, I think Terry came from an era where your word was your word. Now everything's contracts, everything's 90-day non-competes. Everything's just very written in paper, and back in the day it was written in pencil, because you can easily erase it. But he just comes from that era where your word's your word. You show up and you got your word and your honor. So I think he is the reason why, ECW. I mean, he was brutally honest on that first TV show. The show wasn't that good, but we'll get better. And I think people recognized that honesty in Terry's response in the first show, and they're like, "Well, if Terry, could be brutally honest, I'm going to stick with this and ride it out." Whereas if they said this is the greatest show ever, and you're like, "Yeah, this show is the shits," people might not have tuned back in if it wasn't for the fact that Terry was so brutally honest and kept his word, to his dates, and made it more of a destination than a rest stop.
If I can add on to what Josh was saying.
Yeah.
So I disappeared for a couple minutes a few minutes ago, if anybody noticed, and I'm sorry about that. That was merely because Lauren, do you have earbuds?
Yes.
And that's not an ad for Apple or anything, that I'm a shareholder or whatever. I would never I don't want you to run out and get them if you don't have them. But so what happened is I all you have to do is very ever so lightly and slightly, just even if you run your finger by, even if you just lightly suggestively tap this thing, boom. So I don't know, Lauren, I don't know if you've had similar experience where you just with your finger you just kind of touch your bud and like bam, there you go.
Nice
But perhaps, you know, but that's what happened to me, and I just thought I'd put it out there that I didn't want to disrespect by just disappearing for no good reason.
Well, thank you for the clarification. Yes, my
You're
struggle
welcome.
is real in the tanning salon, right? If you touch your
Wait.
AirPods,
If you touch your bud,
right, then it's all over. I have to like open the tanning bed and go get my phone and push play again because I don't know how to touch them again. Whatever.
when you're done in the tanning bed, you always take that little, like, it looks like a little dish, like it's just, for me, it's like not even a hand towel, but then you take that and just out of the kindness of your, even pre-pandemic, and you just wipe it down, right?
Absolutely.
Not because you touch your, okay, just, yeah, in general, everybody is asked to, just kind of as a human being, and like.
Thank you. You
You're
are
welcome.
excused
No, thank you.
for leaving us so suddenly. Adam O'Neill, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lauren. How are you this evening?
Meh, I've been better. How are you?
I'm good. Bit tired. It's very late over here, but when you get over it. So, well, lads, how are you today?
Oh, buddy.
Good.
Good. So basically,
how are you doing?
I'm good.
I should ask. Yeah, I should ask you. It was rude not to snap back.
So just a quick question. So, like, I have never seen like a full like ECW show. I never watched it when it was on.
Yeah, me neither.
So my question is, like, if I went down to the network in the morning and I wanted to watch a Terry Funk match, could you all give me like one match each that you would advise me to watch?
Man, like those early episodes, you know, he had a really good cage match with Jimmy Snuka, which was a television match, but I mean, there's so many good ones. I mean, of course, the barbed wire match with Sabu.
That's what I was gonna say. Just because that was crazy.
Just
barely legal too. Just because what that night was to the company.
Barely legal for everything that was going on around it as well. Because, like I said, that they were running out of time, and you see Todd Gordon around the ringside going, "We're running out of time. Tell the guys in the ring, we're running out of time." And you're like, you know, give him the pencil and the wiggle. If I had a tie, would have wiggled it, you know, to tell him to take it home. But
that was Meanie. That's what Todd Gordon, I believe, was telling Meanie to pretty much get in there and tell Terry Funk to wrap it up.
Yeah,
bring it. Yeah, take it home, Terry.
Yeah, listen here, kid. Yeah, but yeah, for me, it's the barbed wire match with Sabu. I mean, him and Dory against Public Enemy was a really good brawl around the building as well. Yeah, man, there's so many. I mean, it's like picking, you know, saying which child's the best looking one. You know, just like they're all great matches in ECW, and they all, you know, made an impact. But yeah, if I had to pick one, I would say the Sabu barbed wire match, just for the ramifications and everything that happened. A match where, you know, they literally had to change the finish in the middle of the match just for their safety, you know.
Cool. So basically what you're saying is watch them all.
What was that, buddy?
Yeah.
Well, basically what you're saying is watch them all.
Watch them all.
There's really no bad Terry Funk match, and even when he's at his, you know, not his most, they're still entertaining. Like I said, I was talking about the match with him and Rick Martel from Puerto Rico, which is 10 minutes of him selling, and it's hilarious in the beginning. So, you know, there's no bad Terry Funk match.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, man.
Always good to see Adam, and you as well, Andrew. How are you?
I'm good, Lauren. How are you?
Well, thank you. What you got for us?
I was going to ask the guys, obviously, you know, most of us fall in the Attitude Era category on this platform. So we know Terry Funk is the hardcore legend. more so than the catch-as-catch-can wrestler who defeated Briscoe in '75 for the NWA title. Do you guys think, like Flair, who dialed up the entertainment as he became less of a wrestler, Funk dialed up the craziness, the hardcore, as he became maybe less capable of having those true wrestling matches?
That's a good one for Meanie or Joel.
I'd always write about the classic Terry Funk that looked like 1970s Mac Davis back in the day in the After magazines and stuff like that. But when I first started watching Terry wrestle, he was kind of doing the middle-aged and crazy thing in WWE when he first went to WWE and battling with Junkyard Dog, having his matches with Hogan. And then he was still he was turning up the dial going when he went to WCW, having those, the I Quit match with, Ric Flair and stuff like that. I think it was I Quit. Yeah. With, yeah, he was going a little bit crazy. And he was like one of the first guys I saw do a wrestling parody where, he did put on the Ric Flair nose and, made fun of Flair. So I don't know if it's necessarily saying he's become less as a wrestler, just more like evolving. People just evolve, when the Beatles first came out, they were clean cut wearing suits and they had the mop top hairdos. And by the time they broke up, they were dropping acid and had beards and all that kind of stuff. So everybody evolves from one thing to another. I mean, Willie Nelson started singing country music in suits and then towards the end of his career, he's smoking pot on top of the White House. So
when you're saying everyone evolves, you're basically saying everyone starts to do some form of drugs.
Well, like our first episode of This Was Extreme, we were very formal,
It's called That Was Extreme. You know what? I'm sorry. You're the talent.
Yeah.
You're the talent.
But yeah, and towards the third episode, we're our fourth episode now. You see
we're all just dropping acid, and that's right. That's how we do it.
I'm eating edibles right before we come on. Right now, I'm sitting in a cloud of my own Easter farts right now, and you wouldn't know it. But just everybody just evolves. Flair was, Flair earned the right to become a little bit goofy towards the end because he probably was a little bit goofy from all the times he spent on the road. 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. It hurts a little bit less.
But I do think there's got to be some truth to that with Terry Funk, playing up that the more comedic side of just completely losing it. And I don't know if it was to mask his inability to put on a match as much as it was to say, I can still put on a match, but I am in the late 90s in a time where it has to be, raw and entertaining in a different way than it was before. So maybe now he's turning that aspect up so people can say, okay, we enjoy his matches, but man, it's the promo. Cause that's the thing. I mean, you have your guys like you talk about the Attitude Era and Steve Austin, for instance, excellent in the ring, hands down. Excellent. The Rock was great in the ring, but nobody remembers them for their matches. You remember them for the moments 9 times out of 10 on the microphone. And so I think, you have Terry Funk in ECW, or even in, like you're saying, when he was in, the WWF, you have him in that time period. I think he knew that and this is just my opinion, but I think he knew he needed to have something. So whatever it was that he had before, like Meanie had mentioned in the I Quit match, or he just turned it up that much more so that when Terry Funk came on the screen, you knew you're going to be entertained. And yeah, you got a great match out of it too, but you knew you're going to be entertained because that's really what the Attitude Era was all about. It was about those moments.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back to the 70s, you can see Dusty Rhodes cutting a promo on from the Florida territories. They're cutting a promo on Dusty Rhodes. He's in the shower stall pouring motor oil on his head, saying he's going to get all nice and greasy like the people down in Florida. I mean, that's Terry Funk in the 70s being crazy. So Terry was just being Terry, he was crazy. You hear stories about him throwing hand grenades on 4th of July just for entertainment. They broke into an armory and stole all the hand grenades and 4th of July. Oh, we got our own fireworks. Terry Funk was that great.
Yeah. I like some of I think Andrew and Meanie are both right. I don't think it's binary. in the sense that I think, yeah, as time went on and Terry was a master at doing this, he would keep reinventing himself. And I think him in ECW was another reinvention of himself. But I think, like Meanie says, he was always, from this territory to that, a little bit crazy. He was always kind of portrayed as a barnstormer or an outsider or a loose cannon. In many respects, he was really Pillman before Pillman.
Yeah.
And
very good.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not binary. You know, I think both of you have a good point.
Yeah. That's an excellent point that he was Pillman before Pillman.
Definitely. And I guess part of the origin of that question was you've got this man, 40, I guess he would have been close to 50, tying himself up in barbed wire to the point where they have to be cut out of it, you know. And who else in the locker room is going to raise their hand and say, I'll do that, you know? I mean,
I think the only other guy was wrapped up in the barbed wire with him.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and that's the point. I mean, like, because you guys mentioned it on the podcast, but that was a damn spectacle with them having to cut both of them out of the barbed wire. You got Sabu with the tape and the glue, and really, really violent. And of course, cutting edge, because this is 95, you know? So, but that's what, like,
No, I'm sorry. When you said the year, I was like, yeah, it was all blurry. It was probably 95 or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, I think, but that was the point. It was just so cutting edge. But definitely appreciate your guys' perspective and look forward to seeing you in a month.
Thanks for listening to us babble.
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Speaking of babbling, it's my friend with the gift of gab, Carl Mandick. How are you?
I'm well, Lauren. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, buddy. What you got for us?
Hey, instead of doing F, Marry, Kill, can we do MSG, Meanie, Shernoff, Gertner? Rapid fire.
Go for it.
All right. So I'm just going to go down the line. Meanie, if any promoter asked you post-establishing yourself as the Blue Meanie with the blue hair, would you get a Funk Roadhouse perm? And I'm talking like DeBarge, like Rhythm of the Night perm. Like you have to give up the blue and you have to go with dark hair. Any promoter. Sure enough, in what way did Terry Funk, Bill, after visiting you in your 5th grade class, impact you and or drive you towards wrestling? And Gertner, you mentioned on the latest episode you wanted to be a game show host. What game show host, or what game show, I should say, and why? Or game shows with the triple Z at the end of it.
Let's go first.
Oh, it depends on how many people were watching, I guess. There's like been indie shows where people go, "Oh, can you put over this guy?" I was like, "Yeah, nobody's watching. Who cares? Yeah. Who's going to see this? So yeah, it depends. Yeah, what the hell? Yeah. I can always tie it back blue.
I think you go well. You can rock a perm.
Yeah, just let your soul go, to let it shine through.
You're gonna end up doing like just. I would say you're in moonlight karaoke is like Rockwell, like somebody's watching me or something like that.
That's Barry Gordy's nephew. That's
it is. Yeah,
that's how I got Michael Jackson on the track.
Singing the hook.
Useless knowledge.
That's my go-to actually karaoke song. That's embarrassing. That or Oasis Wonderwall. Depends if I'm trying to get a girl. Either way, that doesn't work. Sure enough, I found it interesting that you got a 5th grade visit from Bill Apter and Terry Funk. What?
Well, so Bill's kids went to my elementary school. Bill lived in my neighborhood, and I met him when I was 9, like right before I turned 10. And his daughter and my sister became like best friends. And so that was how, since I was 9 years old, I've been lucky enough to be kind of around the business in a way because of that. So Bill brought Terry Funk to, I mean, and if you look back on it, I mean, this would have been, what did I say? Like this would have been 94 because it was like a spring fair at the school. I mean, he's bringing Terry Funk. Like back then, like this was like the Duke the Dumpster Jersey days, for like what elementary school kids knew about wrestling. And here comes Terry Funk. And it's like, Bill was definitely in touch with had his finger on the pulse of the elementary school. But but no, and I didn't know who Terry Funk was. At that time, I'm 10 years old. I have no idea who Terry Funk is, but I knew he was a wrestler. So, but it did have an impact on me, and the impact that it had was seeing a wrestler in person. I had once before at an indie show that it was almost 30 years later that I learned that it was Tom Brandy actually at the show. And it was because someone on Facebook tagged him. And I saw through a mutual friend who was also tagged in the post with this guy. I'm like, hey, I remember that guy. I have a picture of me and this random guy at an indie show, which I remember that show because I got a piece of the Honky Tonk Man's guitar. But then I found out that it was that the guy who was giving me this autograph that I have in this picture, because I don't remember from the specific night, but it was always like his back was to the camera. But I saw through the picture and what he was wearing. I'm like, oh my God, that was Tom Brandy that I met when I was this little kid. But those were what's that?
No, I had to just say I love Tom Brandy.
Yeah, I mean, I've met him a handful of times since then, and great guy. But no, I to me, it really was as a kid. It was that like, here's a professional wrestler. Like these are real people. At the same time, there was that part of me that was like, oh man, he's like a grown person, and like because when you're 10 years old, you're like, I'm ready. Like I'm looking on TV, I'm like Bret Hart, he's built like me. It's like, well, that's not entirely true. But my mind was enough to know I wasn't built like the Ultimate Warrior. But 10-year-old me saw Bret Hart and goes like, that's a little bit more like it. But yeah, so I guess just seeing Terry Funk was just another layer to what would become this fascination in me, just wanting to pursue this business in some form or fashion. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't as impactful. Like he was my favorite, it wasn't like I could go home and turn on the network and watch a match with him back in 94. So, I didn't really know anything of him other than what I had read in the After Mags. And even then at that point, you weren't reading a ton of Terry Funk in 94. It wasn't, he wasn't the main feature of those magazines at the time. So, but it was cool. Nonetheless, when we heard that Bill was bringing a professional wrestler, I was pretty excited. When it was Terry Funk, it was Terry Funk.
That's wild. So Joel, are you come on down? Price is Right style? You going Richard Dawson? What are you going with?
I could go in 5 or 6 different directions with this, but the first thing that comes to mind, and maybe it's because I used to watch this show as the last thing I did on Game Show Network every 8:30 in the morning, because there was 1 year of ECW. During that time, I was living with my buddy Sebastian, and I was working at a Residence Inn by Marriott in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, for about a year, and I was working the night shift from 11 to 7. Night audit, and I would come home and I'd go to Wawa and I'd get like a tavern ham and Swiss, and at 8:30 in the morning, the last thing I'd do before going to sleep at 9 in the morning, this is the show that I would watch. And this show had it all. I would have been able to be snarky, I would have been able to be smarmy, I would have been able to be in complete game show host mode, I would have been able to get my acting chops on for sketches, and all of the contestants were female. For that reason, I am going to choose the all-new Treasure Hunt from the late 1970s with Canadian MC Jeff Edwards.
That was a deep dive. Yeah, I couldn't see you going with like something early 90s like Nickelodeon. I don't think that would have flown like Legends of the Hidden Temple, Wild and Crazy Kids. That I was hoping you'd pick something old school. So that rocks. Thank you guys for answering those.
Hey, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Great questions.
Always fun.
Always fun. Carl Mandick. Brad Stanton, what's up?
Hey guys. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Hey, thank you.
On Easter Sunday.
Thank you.
On Easter Sunday.
So Meanie and Joel, you guys are my age. I'm 45, and and Josh, you're just a little bit younger, but so I remember the days of, being a kid and watching Terry Funk. And I remember watching him on, in the movie Roadhouse. So, you were, the other previous guy said something about, he brought legitimacy to ECW. And I agree with that. But did you guys feel almost starstruck when he was there because you watched him as a kid? I didn't really hear you touch on that on the podcast. I just think really something to be in the ring with this guy that you watched on TV as a kid and then seen in movies, and then hey, there he is.
I was starstruck with a lot of the name talent I eventually wound up working with. The first like I said, I worked with Cactus, like his first in '94 out in the Pittsburgh area. I was like his first match after the exploding. Bring Terry Funk back into us. I was his first match after that match with Terry Funk where they both blew up and his arm was on fire and all that stuff. I didn't know what to say to the Mick, and he's
right.
He was open to whatever. So, and then when I got to the ECW locker room, I was, quiet, mouth closed, ears open, stuff like that. I didn't speak unless I was spoken to, kind of thing. But yeah, I was definitely starstruck with Terry Funk. Fortunately, I got to be around him as a fan as well. Going to wrestling conventions and stuff like that. But then, once you get into the business and you don't want to, offend anybody, and you don't want to kill your career before it starts. I just kept my mouth quiet and talked and spoke when spoken to and stuff like that. But as I got more established within the ECW locker room, I found a little bit more of my own voice, and I was able to speak and have my own opinion of sorts. So I was definitely starstruck with Terry Funk.
Nice. Yeah, I think I would be too. It would just be really something just to watch someone as a kid, and then there you are sharing a ring with them. That'd be really unbelievable. So
if I can say, all kidding aside, I do this show now with Joel and Meanie, and I'm not starstruck when I'm doing the show with them, but sometimes in the beginning, the first time I got to meet either of them, I definitely was starstruck. You're lying to yourself and everybody else if you say you're not. If you're meeting somebody that you watched on television and were entertained by, and then you meet them and you're not a little starstruck, I mean, there's very few things that somebody can do to reach so many people more than entertainment. I don't know that there's anything other than that. It can be different types of entertainment, comedy, wrestling, music, whatever, but you're entertained by this person. You feel like you've let them into your home through your TV. But now, so the only thing I could really relate to in that regard is getting to work with these guys now in the similar nature to them, then getting to work with like a Terry Funk in the locker room there. I know for me, I still, if I step back and I go, I'm doing a show with Joel Gertner and Blue Meanie, and I think like 15-year-old me, you go and tell him you're going to what, like right now, I'm like, oh, I'm doing the show with these guys that I'm friends with and I respect. But you go back to 15-year-old me, and that aspect still at this point. And I'm sure guys like you would say the same thing about the talent that you worked with in ECW that you watched growing up. It's that even once you're working with them, even once you know them, there's still that part of you that, as uncool as it might sound, you go back and you go, man, that's pretty freaking awesome that I get to do this with these guys that I was, memorizing Gertnerisms and, watching the BWO and all that stuff. So like, you definitely, it's not something you want to run around telling everyone in the locker room or go on a Zoom call and tell everyone, but it's definitely something that I would feel like I could relate to them. Like you'd have to still, I'd imagine, guys, still be starstruck with these people, no matter how many times you're working with them, when you just stop and say, wow, this is who that is.
It's so true though. And like, I used to go to conventions as like a tape trader and a fan. Mm-hmm. And now maybe I'll be at a convention. And as somebody who's been on both sides, it's so true because, I guess I started in ECW in like 95. If you would have told me in 94, right? If you would have told like 18-year-old me that I would be, hosting this show with Blue Meanie, with Josh Shernoff, that I would have 12,300 followers on Twitter, I would have looked at you and said, what the fuck is Twitter? Because it was 1994, you know what I mean?
But Blue Meanie and Josh Shernoff, that you would have said, this is a pinch me moment. I can't believe it.
Well, pinch me where?
Wow.
And Josh, by the way,
you
great
got to
line.
kiss me first, you know. But
sorry, what was that?
By the way, great line to end the show this week. He said, "Yeah, we talked for 2 hours and a solid 45 minutes about Terry Funk." That made me pop there. That was great.
Oh, thank you. I occasionally have a good line.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank
you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank your mom for having you.
Oh my God. Okay, that was so relatable. I am still, to this day, starstruck by Eric Bischoff's dimples and Josh Shernoff's eyebrows. So good to be a part of adfreeshows.com. We are going to back clean up with double shot of James. First, we got El Corai. Hello, James El Corai.
Hello. How are you? How are you, Lauren? Good to see you again. Go Braves. Shout out to the haters. Suck one. I have a lot of like pandering things, like, because I'm born and raised in the Amarillo area, so when I saw Terry Funk like was the poll choice, bet your fucking ass I was clicking that one. And the fact that y'all talked about him and glowing respect, especially you, Meanie, like talking about like being with him and like how you talked about respecting him, like it's kind of like one of my own being like, man, he garnered that much respect from someone, like. So it's good to see like his cores and values, especially. I know he's not from the Texas Panhandle, but like. He still has those Texas Panhandle cores and values, and you kind of saw that and respected that. Amazing shit to me. Like, so I really greatly appreciate you talking very highly of like one of our own, because he's an Amarillo boy. Like, that's one of us.
I love Terry, man. And Texas is a great state. Anyway, I love going.
Yeah, right, it is.
I haven't been there in ages. I'd love to go back, but yeah, man, just you can't help but respect the guy, especially when you see him try to get up out of a chair and see what the toll the business has done to him. I was with Terry at one of Tommy Dreamer's early House of Hardcore shows, and they're having a tag match. I watched Terry just struggle to tape up his wrist. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like my heart broke for the man. Here he is still doing it all these years later, and it's like, man, he gave everything. He didn't cheat on anything. He didn't, cut any corners when it came to performing,
Well, especially to go out of his way and take the respect to like you guys always mention, he brought everybody else up with him. Everybody else could shit on some of these people, but it was his, like, he felt obligated to like, hey, if for the betterment of the business, I'm going to bring these people up,
Yeah,
because y'all say that the WrestleFest thing. My dad still has the newspaper printout. Shout out to the age difference, but my dad has the newspaper printout of that thing. Like, he kept it. We didn't go. Obviously, we were poor, but like he kept it, and it was cool shit. Bret Hart, Terry Funk, right at the top.
That's so.
I
cool.
remember everything about that. Like, oh yeah. So
Cool.
that was appreciate that, Meanie. Joshua, very good to see you again. I do want to say that you had a lot of the facts, like, and you kept steering the ship during this episode, and it was great to like, you talked on a lot of things that maybe would have been overlooked that nobody else, really got on. And
thank you.
I guess to all three of y'all, really, the fact that the ads thing and the fact that, because as you said earlier with KJ's answer, meaning like it's the parody aspect of the ECW. So the fact that like, yeah, no, this is ad-free shows, but like I'm dying. Like, that's ECW. You know what I'm saying? Like, break the system. Go against the grain. Like, this is real shit. Like, so I just wanted to give a shout out to all three of y'all, because this is one of the best Zooms I've been on, hands down. And I'm not eating pizza this time, so it's good to talk to you for sure.
I think ECW didn't run an ad for Extreme Warfare Volume 2. Watch Kimona Want to Lay a Dance. I think they didn't run that ad for about 200 straight episodes.
And and that brings me to you, Mr. Gertner. if there was a wrestling personality or someone that talked the way I talked, it was definitely you, and I fucking appreciate the shit out of it because
Thank
you
you,
know.
Nathan.
You say the things that, you know, and I do want to say I support you on your period piece coming up, and I hope there's a heavy flow of traffic, you know, when it comes out.
Yeah, it's going to be entertaining. I think I'm going to be featured a bit, and it's the kind of thing that you're going to want to watch at least once a month.
Is it going to be a
Every
bloody
4
mess?
weeks, maybe. Oh, gosh. It's
Yeah, that's me, buddy. That's me. That was me.
But
cheers to you.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be. I think in the UK they would refer to it as a bloody good time.
Hey, well, I greatly appreciate it.
His favorite hockey team's the Red Wings.
Yikes! Yeah.
I quit.
This is the absolute best. Once again, thank you all. You know, this is literally the ECW. Like, this is true to form, and I greatly appreciate all of y'all doing this.
Hey,
Like,
that actually really means a lot, you know, because all kidding aside, that when we're out, especially for me who wasn't a part of ECW, when we're representing, you know, that's what we are on the network. Our show is on ad-free shows. Our show is the representative of ECW. And for as much fun as we have, I really appreciate what you said, because I do take it very seriously. I don't want people to go like, oh man, like, well, maybe one day, you know, they'll just do a better ECW show, you know, like I'm really happy to hear what you had to say, because we are, you know, we're having a lot of fun with it, as we should, but we also are taking it seriously. We want to make sure we're entertaining you guys. And I appreciate that about the, because I do try to find as many facts as I can, to be able to get some good conversation going with the guys. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Like, it's so pure to what the brand was and what it was for wrestling in general. Like, you guys are really, I'm glad you found your rhythm for sure. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, James.
Thank you. I know the ultimate goal would be for him to have like a Paul Heyman or Joey Styles, but you know, the fact that people appreciate what we do means a lot.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you guys. Since, you know, there is no Paul Heyman or Joey Styles, we'll settle for you three.
Hey, I got put in the same conversation as Bischoff's dimples.
You did.
I am flying high right now.
It's a big deal. Ask anybody here. James Sorensen, bring it home for us, buddy. You're the last to speak with these idiots.
It ain't the first time this weekend.
No, James, we had to. So everybody here knows James, right? We'll see by head nods or whatever. Okay, so James actually has been a huge supporter of Mind of the Meanie, so much so that he has been a top tier Patreon member for us, which has allowed him, after being a top tier member for 3 months, he got to this past weekend. We recorded it and it drops tomorrow, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. It's on Fight, the video form of it. But the podcast 6 a.m. James Sorensen is our co-host for the episode. And it was a blast. We had a great time with James. So definitely, if you've ever said to yourself, one day I'll get around to checking out a Mind of the Meanie, this would be the one, so that we can tell James, you know, ratings were great. Thanks for the house.
Thanks for the house, James.
Yeah, Lauren wasn't too happy with me a few weeks ago. By the way, Eric gives a great hug, Lauren.
Oh, Jesus. Listen.
Smells great.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
You say Lauren wasn't happy with you. James was supposed to be on our show
2 weeks
that
ago.
weekend. And goes, and we had announced it on the previous episode, and we're like, yeah, James Sorensen from our Patreon, our buddy James is going to be on. And then he's like, oh, you know what? I have to go visit a friend. I have to whatever. And then we see on social media, there he is with Eric frickin' Bischoff. And we're exactly, this guy ditched us for the Bish. And it was, it hurt, but we soldiered on, and we brought him in. And Eric Bischoff's also one of my favorite people, because he gave me my 15 seconds of fame with the retweet. But and the follow, and James, Eric following me on Twitter was definitely a highlight for sure.
Thanks for the rub. Thanks for the rub, James.
prior to me riding with Eric Bischoff in the same shuttle at StarCast Las Vegas, he actually referred to me online as a dipshit. So that's fun.
Yeah. Well, hey, at least he knew you enough to be able to refer to you online as something. So, you know.
Well, you're
That
not
was a compliment, Joel.
You're not as big of a dipshit as Dave Meltzer.
Oh man.
Dave Meltzer's worse.
And if you want my opinion, you can go to youtube.com/so-says-Shernoff or Fight TV.
Is that an ad?
No, not an ad. Just letting you guys know.
Lauren,
Just letting you
no.
know. What did Lauren do?
Here I was thinking about, to make sure that I didn't offend you or hurt your feelings, I wanted to DM you and say, don't hate me. And I wasn't sure if I could do that while I was in the app with Zoom. And Lauren, I think, just added me on Twitter and said, @StudMuffinSays is a dipshit. I hope you're just being playful, Lauren, like I was.
I am absolutely being playful, and I was
gosh.
already following you. Don't trip. We're friends. We're all friends here. This is a family. This is the Ad-Free Show's family.
Love it.
We're all good.
So, James, did you have a question?
I did, actually. So between Mick Foley and Terry Funk as the two biggest hardcore legends and reinvented themselves more, or who would you say reinvented themselves more as a hardcore superstar, Terry Funk or Mick Foley?
So, like, who reinvented themselves, like, who took themselves from what they were and turned themselves into a hardcore legend more? Is that what you're asking?
I think Terry Funk, right? Because I think as Cactus Jack Manson, I mean, he had done enhancement stuff as Jack Foley for WWE in the mid 80s. But once he started being featured in his own right and booked for his own draw, I think Mick was already Cactus Jack Manson. So I think there was less room for needing to change, into being the Cactus Jack of ECW than I guess Terry, reinventing himself from, 60s, 70s Terry Funk to 80s WWF Terry Funk, Memphis, and then WCW, and then ECW. So I'd say Terry.
Okay.
I'd agree with that, yeah.
And if anything, Cactus Jack kind of reinvented himself by just doing the anti-hardcore stint during ECW, where he threw in a headlock for 10 minutes and purposely made the crowd chant boring. So definitely Terry Funk. He reinvented himself, yeah, for sure.
Well, like I know I put you guys over more times than
no, man, you can keep doing that. That's fine.
Hey,
I put over Eric Bischoff on your podcast yesterday a lot.
Yeah. I'm waiting for Eric Bischoff to put us over on his podcast.
Lauren.
Can you do that?
He puts me over on his podcast. I know you guys have heard that.
Yes.
We're
all heard that.
good friends. Eric Bischoff and I, really good friends. All right, James Sorensen, thank you so much for joining us. And to all of you, thank you for being with us for this edition of That Was Extra, as named by Joel Gertner. Thank you for that, my love. And be sure to tune into ad-free shows every month. It's the first of the month, right? Consistently. That Was Extreme.
Yes.
Drops on the 1st. So we'll be looking forward to that. Be sure to follow all these guys on Twitter. So Says Shernoff, Blue Meanie BWO, and Joel, I just tagged you. What the fuck is your handle?
Stud Muffin Says.
That's it. Stud Muffin Says. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night.